we joked about this before we started the video, but Tim and I talked in another video that we thought you must have like a massive warehouse somewhere, because every time I watch one of your videos, you review the Bible and then you start pulling in Bibles, all these other comparison Bibles to talk about it. And there have been times where I've literally thought, I have a Bible that I reviewed and I'm not going to use it. And I think I should probably give this to someone, or I should sell it to someone. And then I think, what would Randy do? And I think Randy would put this Bible in the box and put it on a shelf because he knows he's going to need to compare it to something down the line. And so I imagine, told you guys, I imagine there's some sort of warehouse that you have with just a zillion Bibles in it. Or like what was the Bible that recently came out? The McLaren, the Thomas Nelson McLaren. You had like one of everything. And I was like, what's he going to do with all those Bibles? That I want to know what you do with all those Bibles.
Okay, I'd hate to say this online actually, because people are going to contact me for this. When I have multiple copies, I do give those away.
Yeah.
But I try to give those away to people around here, people local. When it's something that I only have one copy of, I do keep it to answer questions. I've made the mistake before of not having access to a Bible, and I've gotten more questions than I ever thought I was going to get. And you can't help people that way. You help the person that you give it to or sell it to or whatever you do with it. But if you're trying to help another 100 people make a decision, which is what we're all trying to do anyway, you have to have access to it. It's okay to give it away if that's what you feel like you need to do. Absolutely. But at the same time, I want to compare, because like Timothy was saying before, you can't go to a store and look at these anymore.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to see them. So you need to be able to compare. And what we're trying to do is help people make a decision, make the best decision for their needs and for their budget. And if we can't have things to compare to, if I don't use the Bibles in my videos or in my articles, they will ask. I promise you that. They will ask. They'll say, what about this one that you left out? I'm like, I was hoping I didn't need to get one more Bible in my review, but I did. I did need to get one more. But yeah, I do use them just for that, just so that I can answer questions and just so that I can do comparisons.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, if I have extras, I do give those away.
That's really great. Smart
and
man.
I store them in a warehouse. The warehouse is my actual house. I live in a 24 by 36 double wide. I'm an old country guy, and I live out in the country, and this is my internet connection right here. And you know, my phone, if I can get it I just bought this actually. I just came yesterday, but so my house is halfway filled with Bibles, and so I take some of those to the church and I lay them on the pews, and I lay them out in the extra room that we have in there, and it's just they're everywhere, and people start looking at me like, you need to straighten this. And I'm like, yeah, I do, but I also need them. I need to be able to get to them easy. So yeah, they take over after a while. They really do. And I had other people ask me, you know, can you store some Bibles for me? I'm like, no, I can't store Bibles for me. So
Randy's been doing this for a decade. I've only been doing it for a year, and my wife is already starting to look at me sideways with all these Bibles in the house.
My wife was too, until she started getting them. They're sending them to her now. Not just me, but also to her. They'll say, well, here's you some Bibles to review. And I'm like, yes, she's doing these, not me. She has work, not me. It's pretty bad when you get excited for someone else getting the work and you're not having to deal with it.
That's right.
That's great.
Once you've done a couple of hundred or more.
Yeah. The thing that also amazes me, Randy, when I watch your reviews is how often you will say you're looking at a pretty new Bible that just came to the market, and you said, I've been preaching out of this for 3 weeks. And I'm like, how do you have time to do all this? So how often do you preach? I'd like to learn a little bit about, you know, what is your schedule like, and what are you doing? Yeah. Like, where are you preaching and when? And how do you have time to do this stuff?
I preach at my church, and it's twice a week. And then on top of that, what I do is, now I'm not a preacher full-time. Of course, we're all full-time ministry, but what I mean by that is that's not my full-time job. I'm a full-time writer. I'm a freelance writer working for clients. And then on top of that, I do preaching, and then also do Bible reviews, which, as we all know, can be a full-time job. So You know, a lot of times when a Bible just released and I've preached from it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or sometimes for 6 months, it's because I've been given pre-release copies. And I like to spend a lot of time with the Bible before I review it. I don't like to just open a Bible and, you know, I got it today and I opened it and I reviewed it. I want to spend time with it first. I want to talk from experience. And so that's why every time I can, I will preach from a Bible. It's not always possible. And sometimes you do have to rush a review. You do get a Bible in on Tuesday and it's releasing Thursday and you have to have it posted. So you do have to rush. But I do, as much as possible, I like to put as much time with it, spend as much time with it as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's, again, really helpful the way you do it. I also like what Tim Wildsmith has been doing. He kind of has a two-pronged approach. He'll do an unboxing of a Bible and get that first reaction, but then he'll take some time to really look at it in more detail and then review it. But I really like what you just said there, Randy. I think that's great. And I do want to say I'm amazed at your productivity, because you're preaching, you're doing these these video reviews, but you also have a review website, and it just seems like you're an extremely productive person. So do you get up at like 4 a.m, basically?
I get up at 6.
Okay.
Not on purpose, but because my cats decide at 6 o'clock it's time to eat. So yeah, I get up at 6, and then I do my Bible reading and all that, and then I start work for the day. But as far as the process of the review itself, I get a Bible. First thing I do is I do a quick break-in. I don't like to review a Bible or even show a Bible I haven't broken in yet, because that's not how it's going to look once you've used it for a little while. So I want to do a quick break-in, turn every page. If they're stuck together, I turn every single page. That gives me a feel for the paper. It gives me a feel for the consistency of the print. I can know how much I like how they all work together. After 1,000 pages, you're kind of tired of that, but then that does another little bit of a break-in with the Bible, so you do get some use on it. And then I just start using it. I start reading from it. I start studying from it. I start preaching from it if possible. And so that's my process. For the written review, I always do written reviews first. I have a little bit of a template that I follow, and that's my headings. I have the cover, the typography, the references, the footnotes, especially if there's something different, spectacular. If they're large footnotes like the net edition or something like that, I especially like to talk about those separately. And then if it has a concordance, it has maps and these sort of things and other tools, I like to separate those out. And so I already have that separated in my template. So all I have to do is go start writing. So I just start writing about each point. So I'll write for a while about the cover, and I'll write for a while about the layout and the typography and the different materials and things like that. And then once I've written all of that, that's my first draft. Then I'll go back through and I'll go take pictures. Then I come back in, put my pictures in, and then do a second draft. And then from that second draft, it's fresh in my mind, and then I go do the video. So I don't like to follow a script. I've tried following a script. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. But one problem is that I don't have a great memory. So I'll leave out things, and I'll say things in the wrong place, and I'll be all the way at the end, and I didn't even say that it had ribbons. I need to tell you that it has ribbons. I mean, you can see that it has ribbons, but I want to tell you about them. Or, I forgot to say that this has overcast stitching or something like that. And so I have to go back and re-record something and add it in, or I say it later and I'm moving. So when I'm editing the video, I'm having to move all that around. And I'm not a natural speaker. I'm a writer. I'm a natural writer. It takes me about 8 hours to write a review. It takes me about 3 hours to record and edit a 10-minute video, because for 3 hours I'll talk for 30 minutes, and then I'll cut that down, and I'll take parts out, and I'll move things around, and maybe talk for 20 minutes. It just depends. And then by the time I've moved things around, I've spent 2.5 hours editing the video. And then, finally it's ready to go, but it's a long process. For writing my first draft. I've actually done my first draft in my head. So when I go to my second draft, it's almost finished anyway. I don't really have to do a lot of work for my second draft, but I feel more natural for writing. I can put the words down on paper fairly quick and kind of the way I want to, so I don't have to edit a whole lot. So that's a lot smoother for me. And it does take time, but it's easier for me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell from what I've seen from you that you put a lot of effort into what you do, and really is appreciated by so many people.
I appreciate that.
So on behalf of myself and many others, really thank you so much for the effort that you put in, your diligence. It really is fruitful and is a blessing to so many. So we do have a few more questions to ask. I don't know if Tim has any burning questions. I know I have a couple more here. One of the things that I wanted to ask is if there are any Bibles, Randy, that just have really stood out to you in recent memory, you know, just kind of ones that you're looking back on now and you're saying, yeah, these are some standout Bibles from my point of view.
There are three that I keep going back to all the time, and that is the Clarion series. I love the size, the footprint. I love the layout. And I would like to have, I wouldn't mind if it was a larger print, you know, my eyes, but I would like to have it as a text only edition. I don't know if I can get that on. I'd like to have it just as text and have a little bit larger font, but I always go back to the Clarion. It's easy to carry. It's not the easiest to preach from. So for preaching, I like the Concord. It's a Bible that I always go back to. And then another that I go back to is the personal size Quintel. I like small Bibles. The Concord is about the largest that I like to handle and carry. Now, for preaching, I use the McLaren series, but that's a good size for me, that personal size Quintel.
Yeah.
This is my New King James. So sometimes I'm in the mood for a double column. I usually like a single column, but I don't like a wide column, and I want a lot of space between the lines, and I don't want the column to go into the bend of the page, so I want a flat page. So it's really hard to get exactly what you want, but I'm okay with a double column also. But those would be the main three: the Clarion, the Concord, and the personal size Quintel.
Awesome.
How about you?
How about you?
That
was good to hear.
I want to know what you
I want to hear. I want to hear if Tim has any Bibles. I mean, we've talked recently about some Bibles we really like the Allan Bibles, and I know you just did a video on the Allan 53, so maybe that's a standout for you, Tim. But yeah, can you think of any that stand out?
Yeah, I am in the process of doing I guess a complete series on the Allan Longprimer. And so I'm doing unboxings and reviews of 43, 53, 52, 62, all the different long primers. I think I currently have 6 long primers in my house, and it's kind of Allan's flagship. And I would say it's become one of my favorite Bibles. I love everything about it. And the 63 that I got recently, which is the slightly thicker, wider margin version of the Longprimer, it's called the Longprimer Sovereign. I think that's a hilarious name that they called it the Longprimer Sovereign, but it actually fits because it's an epic Bible. So as far as like a big Bible goes, that's probably one of my favorite big Bibles. I am a big fan of the NKJV Single-Column Reference Bible from Thomas Nelson. I kind of loved that Bible when I first got a copy of it. And I think it does a lot of things really well in terms of single column. The use of color and space in that Bible is really fantastic. And I'm just now starting to get into Bible rebinds, and I kind of geeked out recently because I know Randy has done some reviews with Adrian from AE Bibles, but I am really impressed with this one that I got. I was actually texting with Adrian yesterday because I have a couple I mentioned earlier. I really onto the text block, but I kind of wish they were better covers. And so I'm thinking about having him spruce some Bibles up for me. So that's another one that I really love.
Excellent. He's working on one for me now. It's a new Cambridge Paragraph Bible in personal size. And since I just started keyboard, and I kind of like that white with black highlights. So I wanted a white Bible with black highlights. And so he's working on that for me. I'm also
awesome.
Adding some note paper.
I love that Bible. Are you talking about the Cambridge New Paragraph Bible from? I read that guy's book. What's that guy's name?
David Norton.
David Norton. I read his book about the history of the King James Bible, and fascinating.
Yeah.
And
I've interviewed him on Bible Buying.
I got a copy of that Bible after I read it.
Yeah.
And I read that. As I read the book, I found that article and I read that. That's awesome.
He's great.
I would say I'm glad Randy mentioned the Concord. Someone made sure to correct me on exactly how to say that recently. The Concord KJV. I think that's a really ideal size. Maybe you saw recently I did a video about Goldilocks size Bibles that are like just in that sweet spot. And I think the Concord is a really good example of that. I've also said that I wish that they would take modern translations and actually do a replication of the typeset of some of those Bibles, like the turquoise and the Concord, because I think they're just such cool classic typesets. And it would be great to, for me to have like the Christian Standard Bible in a Concord or turquoise kind of in addition. I don't think that's ever going to happen. That's just kind of a thing that I would like. But yeah, I think the Concord stands out. The Allen 52 stands out because, again, to me, they're easy to read and they're a decent size, which I actually like a Bible that's kind of not too small, but definitely not too big, something I can still hold. And I feel like those Bibles really are kind of in that sweet spot. So those definitely stand out to me, but they're the King James Version. So there's a little limitation there if I want to use a modern translation. But let's face it, the King James, as I've said before, gets the royal treatment. They have every edition out there, it seems like, of the King James.
Another I would throw in would be the cameo.
Yep.
I love to have the cameo in every translation. The personal size Quintel is close to that. It's pretty much that, but still cameo. It's hard to beat a cameo.
And I do have to say, I think the publishers are doing a good job of starting to, even if they're not copying the old classic styles verbatim, they're coming up with some pretty good formats for today that still essentially accomplish the same thing. So I really can't complain. I really agree with you, Randy. I think Bible production has actually gone in a good direction, especially over the last several years. I think it's really been going in a good direction. And I think people are responding. The consumers are definitely enjoying what these Bible companies are producing. And aren't we lucky that we get a chance to handle these, review them, and talk to people about them? It's really awesome.
It's a blessing. It really is.
So Tim, did you have any other questions, or have we fulfilled everything that you were hoping for out of this interview?
The one that I was hanging on to was I was going to ask that question, Tim. Great minds think alike. Great Tims think alike. I was going to ask Randy about his favorite Bibles over the years, because he obviously has seen so many and experienced all these different. I will say this. How about this, Randy? Even if you do a review a week, sometimes more, you probably can't review everything. So what's your process like for determining? Is it just the publisher contacts you and you say, yes, I'll review it? Or do you have a process for determining which ones you're going to review? How do you do that?
It's a little bit of both. If they send me things I don't ask for, if it's especially if it's something that I've already reviewed multiple covers for it or something like that, then those are low priority. If it's something that I think is going to be a big seller that people are going to be asking about, those I'll put as higher priority. If it's something I've asked for, high priority. If it's something I've consulted about, high priority. But if it's just something that they just send me at random, I kind of evaluate it and say, well, I don't think this is going to be popular, or I don't think I'm going to get questions about it. So I kind of prioritize that way. And then if it's a lower priority, that doesn't mean I won't review it, but that means that something else comes in, I'll have to get it first. I have a few stacks like that, unfortunately, but usually I'll review everything that I haven't already reviewed a version of. So for example, if I've already reviewed the Life Application Study Bible in NLT, I got TLV on my mind, in NLT, and they send me 5 more covers of the same thing, I might not review those.
Yeah.
If we can, we'll work them in. Lucinda's been going back in and adding them to older reviews so that she can say, we're updating this review, and here is this other Bible, this other cover. And so you'll see a lot of those on the site, but they're kind of lower priority, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if I've never reviewed one, then it's high priority, especially if I'm going to get questions.
Great.
How about you?
Yeah.
I know you get a lot too. So how does it work for you?
Yeah. I some publishers I like have like one contact person who I say, hey, can I get a copy of this? And it works pretty well. Other times it's just like you said, every now and then something shows up, and I've done a couple of mystery Bible unboxings because it's like this showed up and I wasn't expecting it. And I'm at that point now where I've been reviewing, and I don't probably get as much as you do. But I've been reviewing as much as I can. But I do have people reach out. In fact, Randy I have to say thank you. You were very helpful. A couple months ago, somebody reached out and they were asking me to review something, and I wasn't sure about it. And so I just sent Randy a message and said, can I get your advice on this? And he was so helpful and very gracious. And so I love that about this community, is that it's not a competition. We all kind of have our own lane, and we're doing some similar things, but we're doing it in different ways. And so that was really great of him. And my relationship with Tim and several other Bible reviewers out there. I just was chatting with Cam Hyde today, and he was, said some really kind things. And so I love that. I love this camaraderie and community that we have in this Bible reviewer world. And as Randy said, we're all trying to help people find a Bible that they're going to love and enjoy using. And, the more the merrier,
That's so good. And I'm with you, Tim. I just appreciate the gifting that God gives each people uniquely as part of his body. And I think you see that even with the Bible reviews and the different reviewers that are out there. We each have our own gifting and our own style, our own approach, our own way of looking at things. And I will say, kind of to wrap up our time here as we're talking, that it has been a joy and a blessing to just glean from the gifting that God has given you, Randy. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the channel here today. I hope too, maybe we could talk again sometime. I'd love to talk with you, especially about the Thompson Chain Reference Bible, because you are an expert on the Thompson Chain Reference Bible. I think you even did a recording for Zondervan to talk about that specific Bible. So I would love to talk about that. And really with both of you, I'd love to talk about that and Bible rebinds. I think that's another topic. But I think if we try to fit that into this video, it'll go on for a couple hours. So I think this has been great. We'd love to hear if people have comments or things they want to ask us in the comment section. Feel free to leave those. And also, everybody tell Randy what a great job he's doing and what a blessing that he has been to all of you, as I know he has been. So thank you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's been an awesome discussion. I hope we can do it again before long.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much. And thanks for everything you do. You're doing great. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the work.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Tim.
much.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you. God bless.